The fight to change Australia's constitution is heating up, and many in the media appear to be completely out of step with polling and public sentiment. It is clear that many inner-city journalists desperately want this change to go ahead. And it's led to a strange situation where some stories are amplified and some are completely ignored. Do you remember a few weeks ago when the Nine newspapers splashed on this story? The campaign to Sync the Voice has instructed volunteers to use fear and doubt rather than facts to trump arguments used by the Yes campaign. In an online training session, the national campaigning chief for the leading no activist group Advance, Chris Inglis, detailed the anti-voice movement's core strategy of playing on voters' emotions. Now, to me, that article reads like an opinion piece, not a news report, but it did its job. The story dominated headlines and was given significant airtime on the ABC, which sought to analyse the tactics and tell viewers what it all meant.
What did come out as part of that session, which the ABC has seen, people from the No campaign are being encouraged to not tell people on the phone that they are calling from the No camp. They have said that that could scare people off and cause conversations to end early. They're encouraged instead to be saying that they're calling from Fair Australia. Also, as part of the script that these volunteers are being served, they're being asked to then raise concerns around questions that they have with prospective voters about the Voice to Parliament proposal.
And it wasn't long until the popular narrative in the media was that the No campaign was spreading misinformation.
The constant struggle that we're always going to face is the speed at which misinformation, lies and fear can spread is much more fast than the message of hope and love and empathy.
Is it misinformation to point out concerns with a proposition? But all of that aside, clearly dodgy tactics by campaigners are immensely newsworthy for the ABC and Nine, but that very righteous pursuit for clean campaigning does not appear to extend to the other side of the debate. Last night on Sky News, and then today in the front of today's Daily Telegraph, we broke this story. Two voices, how the Yes campaign changes its message. The Yes campaign for a Voice to Parliament has been caught out telling volunteers to massage their messages about a possible future treaty with Aboriginal Australians, depending on what kind of voter they were speaking to. And just to make it abundantly clear about what we're talking about, listen to Peter Credlin go through screenshots of that conversation and you be the judge.
She says, does anyone have a good script about the treaty? I've just had a chat with someone about it and kind of got caught off guard. Now, first comes a response from a former Greens campaign organiser that it depends on whether the voter is pro or anti-treaty. Then back comes the official advice from the Yes campaign official, Jonah. This is Yes 23's campaign official, and it reads, if they are pro-treaty, you can say that the Uluru Statement from the Heart asked for the Voice before treaty. If they are anti-treaty, well, you can just say that the Voice is purely an advisory body.
So what was the media reaction to this? Absolute silence. The Sydney Morning Herald, which supposedly thinks dodgy campaign tactics are front-page news, has run dead on the issue. And we have not been able to find anything about this on the ABC either. And so this goes to the heart of the issue this referendum, where many journalists appear to be completely out of step with public opinion on the Voice. Right now, polls show the majority of Australians are against this proposition, despite a massive, coordinated media campaign to push this change through. To many journalists, they are attempting to explain away this disconnect as Australians being so stupid they are falling for misinformation. Either that or they must be racist or bad people. And it is that level of contempt for the intelligence of the average voter which turns people off major changes. Well, joining me on the show this week is Darren Davidson from The Australian and Sky News contributor James Bolt. James, why don't we start with you? Obviously, both stories are very newsworthy, and I do think it was right for the SMH to splash on that story, showing out questionable tactics, saying one thing but then doing another thing. You found the Yes campaign, as we all probably knew, all pollsters, all campaigners do this, doing pretty much the exact same kind of thing.
Yeah.
No one really cares. It's not as big a story on the other side.
Yeah, it's cute when we do it. It's fine. It's just It's only misinformation if it's stuff that I don't agree with, would be their arguments. Like, it's just, we need to get the right message out there. We need the Yes campaign to win. So therefore, if it's going to be one message for one group of people and one message for another, then it's fine. And we don't need to cover it because it's not news. But what I think is interesting is, look, if and when the referendum does go down, there's going to be a lot written about what is clearly about to be one of the worst campaigns ever run, to go from where they were at the start of the year to where they are now. Why would you want two conflicting messages out there? Like, you've got two camps you're trying to appeal to. One scared of a treaty, one wanting a treaty. You really want this group of people going, oh, it's just an advisory body, going out there telling their friends, oh, it's just an advisory body, when those friends might be in the camp of wanting a treaty and they're going, but the exact same people told me there would be a treaty. Like, that's the kind of divisions that are going to sink a campaign.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to sell, I think, from a campaigning point of view. There is this almost flaw in Albanese's proposition. He has to convince Australians that this thing will not be impactful, at the same time convince other Australians that it's so crucial that not to do it would be devastating. And that's a hard thing to reconcile.
Yeah, I think it's yet more evidence of the fact that the referendum debate has failed to convince voters provide a proper explanation of what's at stake. And Australian voters are not stupid, and they're clearly showing that they don't accept these kind of facile explanations of what's at stake here. And what's at stake is pretty significant. It's a new constitutional power, and they sense that, they instinctively know that. And as the ones calling for change, it's really on the Yes campaign to provide a proper explanation of what they're proposing. And I think we're seeing at the moment that that they're coming up short quite badly.
Yeah, well said. Let's move on and now to a little bit of fun with a cartoon spoof of one of our favourite shows, The Project. Now, you would remember last week when singer Kamal had an awkward interview with The Project where he changes his position on The Voice live on air. Well, Pauline Hanson's Please Explain cartoons have dedicated an episode to the saga, and they do not pull any punches.
This is The Project. And first up tonight, we're joined by an A-list celebrity that everyone knows, loves, and definitely remembers, not obscure at all, Kamal. All right, prep the overlay, hashtag Kamalmentum. The second he says what he's doing, I want that flashing on screen. Let's get that trending, people.
Copy that.
Yes, this is exactly what we needed. One final celebrity endorsement. This is going to save my referendum and swing the polls back in our favour.
Now, Kamal, you were originally voting no, but now that you're thinking more clearly, you've decided to vote yes?
Well, after doing a little bit of research, I've decided to vote no.
What's going on?
He's voting no, sir.
I'm getting reports that he's done his own research. Oh no, he's thinking for himself. Shut it down, now. Hamish, come in, Hamish. We're cutting to an emergency ad. Emotionally manipulative ad in 3, 2, 1. This is The Project, we'll be right.
James, these cartoons, these are some of my favourite cartoons. They're so well produced. That was so on point. But talking about how The Project handled that interview, I think when it's put that way, it was so absurd what happened. They didn't like what he said. So it went from being this friendly interview to being immediately adversarial. Then there was fact-checking, flawed fact-checking, might I add. What do you think?
I did love the white presenter being, no, here's what's good for minorities, come on. But like, what I just don't get is, from Albanese's perspective, from Project the Dancer perspective, why would they risk it all for the opinion of Kamal? Like, as a man of my age, never really heard of the guy before, like, the Voice campaign's kicked off. Like, there's certain pop stars you want to push all your cards into the middle of the table, get a hashtag built around their name. Don't know if it's Kamal.
Yeah, it's a good point. And Darren, you know, we were talking the other week about the fact check that came out about this, and later on in that video there was a little bit of a spoof on that as well. But you know, Kamal came out and raised this $40 billion figure, and then Hamish McDonald tried to take what he was saying and associate it to a very, one specific bureaucracy which had a $4 billion figure, even though with inflation it probably is closer to $40 billion. That's a mistake, fact-checking someone live on air. You've got to be pretty certain. I do think that's backfired. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think it's just another example of this almost desperate insistence by the Yes campaign that this is just an advisory body, and it doesn't really pass the smell test for voters. And anyone that starts doing their own research, as was the case live on air, starts to ask very, very good questions. And unfortunately, the very defensive responses and the recriminations that result from that only seek to undermine the campaign that they're mounting at the moment. And, many people support reconciliation, native title, better lives for Indigenous communities, better education, longer life expectancy. No one's really arguing against that. But I think what the Yes campaign has failed to do so far is actually really properly explain what they're actually proposing and what the far-reaching consequences of that would actually be.
Yeah, I think just picking up on Darren's saying as well, I think that there is also an issue where for some of the first time in history, people can go and get their own information. And you used to have a show like The Project would command so much influence over young people. It doesn't really seem to be working. As you said, they're wheeling out celebrities, but that doesn't answer the core criticism with the proposition that there's not enough detail. It's answering criticisms it's to a motive with more emotion, with more celebrities. It's having the complete opposite response. And I think some of the mainstream legacy media voices find themselves in this position where they're not as powerful as they used to be. They can't just talk down to people down the camera and then sway influence.
Yeah, it's just, well, I mean, people my age and, young people in general just don't watch Channel 9, Channel 10, ABC to get their news that way. They're out there, they're wanting to hear fresh opinions, they're talking to their friends, and it's just not the same way. And no amount of Kamal or Shaquille O'Neal is going to change their minds on The Voice.
Yeah, particularly if there's points bet ads,
exactly.
gambling ads.
And if he actually doesn't mention The Voice in that entire press conference.
Has no idea what it is. He clearly has no idea what it is.